Yep. Jim, you mute. Jim. There.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just trying to make sure it worked. Okay, well, I think we ought to go ahead and get going. Dennis will join us. No.
No, that was Eva dropping off.
Yeah. Well, it is 1 o'clock.
I know Dennis is back in his home in Burlington in Canada.
Boy, Bob, I had some of those beautiful broccoli last night at Outback Steakhouse. I mean, you have trouble finding vegetables, and it was I told Cheryl I was thinking of you guys when they brought me the huge plate of broccoli last night.
Yeah, Jim and I were talking about that yesterday. We can't get any vegetables here on Cape Cod for some reason. We just ordered an Instacart this morning and ordered some zucchini that was showing up. The thing showed up, it was the size of a hot dog. It was really pathetic. But at least I'm going to have a vegetable tonight.
Okay.
Where are you, Bob?
I'm in Harwich on Cape Cod. And there's plenty of people here. I guess they're all eating all the vegetables.
All right, Mike, you think we ought to go ahead and start?
Yes.
Okay. We'll call this special meeting to order. And first thing on the agenda we're going to have, I think Mike and Josh and Brianna are going to talk about standard operating procedures in phases. Might include Jeff too.
Yeah, I wanted to get Jeff in here as well to talk about golf operations. So Brianna right there, Josh, Jeff. We spoke this morning at the staff meeting. We talked about, we were getting into the budgets, and we talked, first thing was standard operating procedures and how we were going to look for a phase one, which is right now. It's a first step in reopening. And it's something that I got a few changes, tweaks to make on it, and I'm going to send it out to the board of directors so you can see. It's very detailed as far as every department goes, what each department looks like. And Josh and Brianna have a much more detailed presentation. I just wanted to run through here briefly what we're looking at as far as food service goes. Clubhouse, since we're under 25% capacity max that we can service right now due to the state of Florida orders, we didn't seem to want at this point in time to open up internal dining just yet, the clubhouse just yet. We want to continue it as what we're doing. As far as takeout and delivery, we think we can take care of the majority of members that way. At 25%, we can only bring in so many people into the dining room. It's very few, and we were going to wait until about 50%. I'll take anybody's input on that, but that's what we're recommending at this point in time. The turn, of course, working from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Offices and administration will remain staffed as needed. Clubhouse would still remain closed for golf, pro shop closed for member access. No guests on the golf course. Again, this is May 1st until June, July, something like that, where we move into phase two. Of course, single rider golf implementation with cart standardization procedures, the automatic tipping, members bringing their bag to the club, place of the cart, and then taking them home. Restrooms on the golf course open and continuously sanitized. Ice and water machines on the golf course are open, but no cups, lids, or straws provided. No social gathering before, during, or after play, and then no league play. As far as tennis goes, no guests on the court. Ice and water machine, well, it would be open if we had one. The ice and water machine died, so we're ordering a new one, and we should have that hopefully in a couple weeks. Players trying to get them to bring their own balls and serve with their own balls. Again, no association play, no ball machine. Bocce courts closed, and as far as the pool goes, no guests permitted. Pool for exercise only. No outdoor furniture. Bring your own chair, towel, cup, noodles, and any other water aerobics equipment. Limited to 15 persons in the pool area, 2 in the spa. Practice social distancing, and the fitness room closed. Now, I'm not going to get into phase two just yet, but that's what we look like right now. And you know, for phase 2, just as an overview, we're looking at, you know, reopening the clubhouse. And so whenever the governor says, you know, you can go to 25 or you can go to 50% of your occupancy, then we think that's most likely the best time to go ahead and move into phase 2. And we have that detailed out as well. Rather than go through all that right now, which I will send it to you, I'd like to just stick with phase 1 right now and accommodations for food service. Whether we, you know, take care of people outside or however we're going to do that, I want to turn it over to Josh and Brianna and let them talk a little more in detail about it, and then we'll get with Jeff and talk about golf operations.
All right. So the way it looks right now, if we were to do 25% capacity in each of the rooms, we were looking at the dining room max capacity of 37. The grill and club room capacity would be 37 total people with 5 bar stools, and the Lakeview around 15 people. Right now, we're currently using the greens room for storage for all the extra tables and chairs that we have to move aside because of these restrictions. You know, of course, we're looking to use more disposable items than use. Not putting anything on the tables unless requested. So like if Four Top comes to sit down, we'll bring them roll-ups to the table. If they want salt, pepper, sugar, crackers, whatnot, we'll bring that to the table as needed or as requested. You know, staff will be wearing gloves. They'll be wearing masks. We're going to recommend that we change the gloves every 10 minutes or at least every table. Masks every 30 minutes. We're in the process of getting a heavy-duty sanitizing solution in order to sanitize the tables, workstations. We're going to make sure that everything's wiped down every 30 minutes, regardless. Same thing with hand washing. Make sure that everybody is washing their hands every 30 minutes. You know, we're going to try and create more signage. You know, have the standalone hand sanitizer when members come into the grill room to make sure and use that. We have one now outside posted by the snack shop. Just make sure to remind, you know, the membership to wash their hands, you know, to practice good hygiene, to, you know, when they sneeze or like that, use their shoulder, use their arms instead of their hands. We're working on creating a frequently asked question page that we could post on the website for members that have questions about hours of operation, how many people can sit at one table, you know, reservation system. And that's kind of what we're talking about too, is making it required that you have a reservation in order to come dine at the club. I know during lunch it could be tricky trying to coordinate that with tea times. Don't know exactly how that would work. I do know afternoon that of course we would have reservations for those coming in to dine with us during the evening. It'd be more feasible than to try and correlate that with golf tea time. You know, just basic things that we can do in order to keep this place as sanitary as possible. You know, it's going to take more manpower in order to do this. More staff than what we normally would have budgeted this time of year. It's going to be more labor intensive. But we're willing to do whatever, you know, is needed. We were talking this morning about taking some tables and chairs up from the pool and putting it on the back patio area by where the tent is. Possibly putting, you know, some umbrellas over that area. Maybe getting some big floor fans set out there to help circulate air a little bit more as we are getting into summer where it's considerably hotter outside than it was a couple months ago. I do feel personally that more people would be comfortable in sitting outside rather than sitting inside. So to try and make those areas as you know, more accommodating as we can, I think is going to be a big thing going forward. Actually talking about events this morning and what we're looking for events for next season. And you know, the consensus is I think people, you know, try and schedule our events calendar next year around doing more events outside rather than doing inside events. So of course, you know, this is a new challenge for all of us. You know, so we're just trying to to see how this will go. We sent out a survey to the membership to see if people are sticking around this summer, you know, what policies, procedures they would be in favor of in order to come up and enjoy their club. So we're going to take that information and utilize that going forward. Brianna, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to add. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head with everything we typed up. I think just being aware of how labor intensive it will be. We'll need extra people to sanitize. We're going to need an extra hostess we normally wouldn't have to monitor the number of people coming in and out. It adds up. I'm not sure if you guys received the schedules I mocked up for the next month, but it kind of shows the difference in payroll if we were to stay open 7 days a week like we have been versus closing to our normal summer hours, or just closing Wednesdays.
Brianna?
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. I'd like to, after we just talk about the actual operating procedures for now, and also what we're looking at maybe in June and July, we can get into the summer hours of operation. I wanted to talk to the board about that. So we'll pick that up in the next section.
Okay.
I think one thing I wanted to discuss, we discussed how we could service the outside right now. You know, if we could, you know, put any tables out. I think we were discussing how you'd lay some things out. I don't know if you have anything like that together, but you know, we've got a lot of golfers right now. You know, they can use the turn, but we're going to want to start finding ways to, you know, get more revenue from those people as well too. So table setups would be a big thing. Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Corso? Mr. Corso? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, two questions. First one is, are we doing this, are you looking at this from a standpoint of just trying to accommodate membership, or have you given it, it sounds like your couple comments there about adding more people, more expensive, etc. And so if it's not financially feasible where we can actually make money, net make money, it doesn't seem like we ought to be doing anything, if we, in my opinion, that we ought to be doing it just to please, you know, some people, number one. And then the other one is, Mike, you just started to touch on it. I see where a lot of golfers are, when they finish golf, especially now that we have the window open at the turn, there aren't enough seating. There's no seating. You know, there's very little seating outside. People are eating, they are grabbing something, but there's no place to sit, so they're going all the way down in front of the clubhouse. I think that if we were to put some chairs and things out there, tables, and, you know, obviously limit the seating as we talked about before, we would have more people that would come out there and sit. And I see people are having beers now, and they're having hot dogs and such. I think that's there would be some of that. But going back to my first one, if I'm hearing that there's added cost, and I also heard you say versus normal summer operations. I mean, I don't know what we would be doing versus our normal, you know, anything more than normal summer operation.
Well, just as a preface, and I'll let Josh and Brianna answer that. First of all, I don't think that there's any way we could really justify opening up the clubhouse right now, doing what we'd have to do, and only being able to bring in 25% of the business
Right.
we would have. So I think that's just our first assumption. We weren't going to do anything until we hit 50%. Now, we may still struggle at 50%, but you know, that's at least a better shot than 25. I do think we talked about getting some tables out there, and I think that you know, we can start to get more revenue out of that area and give some people some places to sit, just optimizing it a little bit. Josh?
Yeah, definitely. We could, you know, we have the card tables that are in the multi-purpose room that we could put out there. We could put some round tables. It's just, you know, getting back to how it was kind of when we had the bar down there too. You had a lot of people congregating around an area,
That's because there were too many seats, Josh. There were far too many seats around the table.
Well, we can limit that, 5 to 6, probably 5 chairs around a round top, 2 chairs around a square table, The area I'm kind of thinking of is underneath where the oak trees are, because then you have your natural shade area, so you're not sitting directly in the sun, kind of where the other tables are located. But we can absolutely, go ahead.
Point, Josh, and maybe you or Mike can check this out if you don't know, but in the state of Missouri, the governor has talked they're expanding the capabilities of outdoor dining above what is normally approved, because they're not able to control the indoor dining. And like Mike says, if you can't get above 25%, what's going to cost you to unlock those doors, let them in, and the cost really overrides that service. But so in the state of Missouri, they have removed all limitations they have on outdoor seating as long as they can do the social distancing. Have they done that in Florida? Where do we stand there?
Florida is 50% for outdoor, for restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely, add seating out there. I don't see an issue with that. That's kind of where I see us going more. Like I said, the outdoor patio area outside the back part of the dining room. There's a lot of underutilized space back there between the pool and where that is that we can put tables at regular service. That's another area. But the only thing is it's on the other side of the club compared to where the turn's located.
I think if you had, again, only if it's financially beneficial to us, right? Using that patio and even setting a portable bar up out there, and I'm not going to call it happy hour, right? But if that was something that you felt we could make some revenue, generate profit. I'm going back to not revenue, but profit. Okay. We certainly don't want to give something out there, I don't think, at this time that will, it's nice to have, but we're going to lose money.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing right now. The way we're structured for the summer months is to only be open 2 nights a week, and to offer lunch 6 days a week. That's what I budgeted for. That's what I budgeted for the last several years. And if we continue down this path, we're showing more revenues at night than we are during the day. If we continue to go down this path, being open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., the costs are going to be there. I did a cost analysis I sent out to Mr. Ziegler last week. It's going to add an additional at least $13,000 to $15,000 worth of payroll over what is budgeted for the month of May to be able to do that. Now, are revenues going to reflect that? I don't think so. But then again, maybe it's something that we offer, only select days during the week or select nights.
Well, my question is, why are we talking about doing something over and above what we would have normally done?
Well, because sorry, I can answer that. Because we had talked about, well, let's stay open on Wednesdays for food service and for golf, and they weren't budgeted for that. And
no, but I understood you to say on Wednesday, close it down at noon. Close down at noon.
That's what I think we're going to do. He's just saying when he heard we're going to be open on Wednesdays for the month and then open 7 nights a week as well too, then that went into that calculation. So my recommendation would be that we open for we stay open on the golf course on Wednesdays, okay, at least until like 11 o'clock or 11. So we get a first round of everyone out on the golf course, and then we can close it. Ben can do his work on the golf course, and be closed on the inside and for food service, with the possible exception of a skeleton type crew that could put out hamburgers, pizza, wings, and salad, like we said we would always be able to do for delivery. So that's one thought. If not, we would just be closed the whole day and save the money. I also think, since we've always been open 2 nights a week in the summertime for dinner, I would be okay with that. I'd even be okay with if there's 1 night or 2 nights or 3 nights or whatever in particular that have been really busy for takeout and delivery, we could stick with that for a while. But I think we need to pare it down the nights that there's not a lot of demand. And instead of going 6 and 7 nights a week through dinner time, if people are leaving, because we've already seen that quite a few are leaving, the revenues won't be there. So there's no sense in staying open. We're here for the membership. We're here to take care of them. But if we get into the summertime when we're budgeted to be slow, we need to start to shut some of these nights that are costing us extra money with a full staff. And again, at least, Josh, maybe we could work up a cost of just, the prep cook making burgers, pizza, wings, and salads, and then a delivery person and an expediter, and maybe the cost of just that on 1 or 2 or 3 nights a week or 4 nights a week that you haven't budgeted for, but maybe that's more realistic and we can still take care of people, with just that basic small menu.
So basically, Mike, what we're saying is that scaling down with the lower numbers are going to be an intense spring run, but still expanding out around the turn area for some of those people, get that going. Let's get some other board members' input. Jim, you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I'll agree with Vince that, this summer we're going to be looking for revenue. So, we shouldn't put extra stuff on just for the members or whatever. I mean, we should try to, give them what they want. But to add staff that we were already planning on budgeting and losing money, I agree with Vince. I don't think we should go that way. And some of it is up to Mike and Josh. When it starts slowing down and we're not doing the revenue and doing the business, then that's what we pay the big bucks. You guys make the decisions of what to shut down.
I say one thing, I want to throw this in there, and Mr. Owens will probably add it in pretty soon too. But with regard to one of the caveats with this PPP loan is that we have to come up with a baseline full-time equivalent employees that's going to be calculated most likely over last year. And then we have to keep that same number of FTEs, full-time equivalent employees, on over the course of 8 weeks from the day we were funded for this PPP, April 29th, through June. We're going to have to keep that same number of people on there. If we go below that number, and we're going to be calculated every single week, if we go below that number, they start to remove that portion for the forgivable amount. So this is a little curveball thrown in here. Normally we want to slough off as much labor as possible in the summertime. We may have to be forced to keep some on, which is good, but and if they're going to be here, we provide a service. I'm just saying that now and in June, we have the leeway of operating more than we would have been open. But getting into the middle of summer, I'm going to say that we're not going to want to stay open 6 nights a week for dinner.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I can just add to that. Mike is absolutely right. We got to pay attention to the full-time equivalents, and what they're trying to determine right now is what's the most advantageous period of time to calculate the baseline. You have some choices there, and once we determine that average full-time equivalent for a baseline to compare to, then we know what we have to live up to during this 8-week period. After that, it doesn't matter anymore. But between now and about June 23rd, I think it is, the 8 weeks are really important on the average wage levels as far as the full-time and the full-time equivalency. So that has an impact on all this, but it shouldn't necessarily drive it all. But we don't want to lose any of the forgiveness that we can get.
Thanks,
I
Bob.
also might add, sounds strange coming from a financial guy, but there is some value in what Josh and Brianna and the team has been doing in providing the meals and the pickup service for, it really is a pretty much an at-risk community, so that they can spend more time on campus and not have to go out looking for food or have people coming in from other restaurants to deliver food. So I think it's been a very valuable service. There's some value there, I guess, is what I'm saying. So we don't want to dismiss that out of hand and just look at the numbers. The numbers obviously are critical this year, and that's what Mike and Josh have already talked about. So I'm on board with that, but let's not lose sight of the fact of how much value that's added to our membership.
Absolutely.
I am
Paula?
not suggesting, on that one, I'm not suggesting at all that we change that. I thought we're just talking about doing extra labor to bring people into the clubhouse. What we're doing now, what they're doing now, that's a definite benefit. That's a very valued thing. And I think we're making money on it. Are we not?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want to stop that.
Sure. Okay.
Unfortunately, we're not hitting our budgeted revenues, but we're doing well.
Okay. Paula?
I just want to ask a question to make sure I understand. The delivery takeout items and service, does that continue all summer long, or does that end at the end of June? Or, I mean, you're talking, it's a great service. It is. And I mean, the food looks delicious. I wish it were there. But is it ongoing right through till next September? What's the plan on the delivery?
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think delivery and takeout is here to stay. That's not going to go away. And I think we've actually gotten pretty good at it. So I'm going to give you guys a lot of credit for being very, very efficient at it. And that's a skill that you just can't learn. You got to do that. So, I think we're going to keep that. We have it going out into phase 3, and I have it, whatever phase 4 is going to be. I have it there too. So, we can, as long as we're open, as long as we're providing food, we can always provide the takeout. I think the question is right now is on the nights we're not open for this regular dinner. Okay. So we have, in the summertime, we only have dinner, 1 or 2 nights a week. What is the availability of food service, the size of the menu or the options on the other 5 nights or 4 nights? And I don't know what the answer is that yet. I've thrown it out there as the basic delivery menu, but then again, if we can't get enough business, maybe we should cut that down as well too. So.
Okay. Paula, follow up, and then Dennis, you're next.
A little follow-up question. You're reading my mind there, Mike. You were limiting what was to be offered to hamburgers, wings, pizza, and salad. And if the delivery service is still going on, why can't the available menu also include whatever the special of the day is that's being delivered?
I think the only issue there is, you need, for a fuller menu and different preparations, you need more people. So you need more staff in the kitchen. And, that's when you start to get more costs. Josh, do you want to answer that?
I'm not suggesting a full menu. I'm simply suggesting adding whatever it is that, there's a special of the day that I'm looking at on the website or Facebook. Why can't that special be added to the choices to vary it?
Josh?
I mean, it all depends on how many people order, how quick it is to put together a plate, if there's 3 to 4 different components to a plate, or if there's 5 to 6. There's prep time that goes into it. Like case in point tonight, we're doing surf and turf. So we got to get in Pismo steaks, cut those down, prep them, cook them, do the vegetables, everything's cooked here a la minute. So we don't pre-cook all of our food. We cook it as it comes in. Yeah, we do a lot of pre-orders, so we're able to prep with that, but as the orders come in, we cook.
It's not fast food, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think the reason why we had said initially, pizza, wings, burgers, salad, was because those are things that one prep person, one line cook could put together pretty quickly and get serviced. When you get into other items that require more preparation, you're going to have to add a second and third person.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
All right, Dennis?
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is it possible for everyone to put their phone, on mute unless they're talking?
I am too. Can't find
We'll see if that takes care of it, Dennis. Thanks.
Can't find it.
That's all right. We got rid of it. Whoever it was gone. It's gone. No, not back.
Judy?
No, I just was saying I couldn't hear. I thought Mike was talking.
I said someone has to be unmuted so they can talk. Who wants to talk? Corso?
A follow-up question on this. Am I understanding that you're serving some meals that require multiple people to prep, but we're not making any money at it?
Gosh.
No, I'm just saying that there's certain items that take a little bit more time and care and preparation in order to make other than certain items. So like pizzas, we can prep those hours in advance, put on a rack, and all we gotta do is pop them in an oven. Case in point, tonight we're doing the surf and turf. We're cooking the steak, we're sauteing the vegetables, and we're making sure the starches are cooked as well.
Sauce.
Yes, every item takes a different preparation, a different method of cooking, different methodology. So
I understand that, but what I don't understand is, I would assume that you wouldn't be offering something if you didn't think there was enough of a demand for it to justify offering it. And if you don't have a demand for it, cut it out, don't offer it. So if the population drops to a point where you no longer can afford to serve multiple surf and turf or anything, multiple, whatever it may be, you cut it out. And if the demand drops down enough because there's not enough people here to have any food service at some point in time, you cut that out too. We no longer have enough demand to justify having people there. And that's got to be, in my opinion, that's got to be your call, Josh. When you have to tell Mike, you know what, we can't afford to have 3 people anymore, so we can't afford to have multi-course meals. All we can serve is these meals. And if the population drops even further, okay, you got to say, I'm sorry, we can't have any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're looking at. My point of view was to see how things will go in the first week in May. If we're going to continue to see a tail off, then yeah, I do recommend we adjust our hours, we adjust our offerings. We've already cut our menus down significantly from what we're offering. The only thing is now is we're trying to do these quick service specials. We're trying to offer a good variety. Like we know tonight with the surf and turf, we're probably not going to do more than 20 or 30 orders, of the filet. But that's product that we have in house. We're trying to utilize a lot of the product that we have in house without having to order outside stuff. And that's why our menus have been varying so much. But as we get further and further into the month of May and into June, July, August, September, you will see us cut down on what we do offer so that we can scale back on the labor if need be. But definitely, I agree completely.
Okay,
I think you're going to see a significant drop off. A lot of people I know have already made mention of the fact they're leaving. They're going back north. So I think we're going to start to see some exodus from here of people that have been here for the last few weeks.
Bill?
Josh, I was going to ask you, have you noticed a significant drop in demand for takeout in the evenings over the past, let's say, 10 days or 3 weeks or something like that?
It's been different. This past Sunday, we had a very busy Sunday because we did the chicken and ribs. We actually sold out of those. But the 2 Sundays prior, this past Sunday, we did close to $2,000 in sales for Sunday evening. The past 2 Sundays combined, we didn't meet that number. So it's been varying. On average, we're anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 a day. The turn, we're anywhere between $200 to $450. We did $450 in sales on Monday at the turn. The other days we've been averaging around $200 to $250. So it's been varying, but I do expect those numbers to tail off significantly after the first week in May. I'm going to guess that we're going to average around $1,000 a day rather than anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 and see that steadily decline. But we do the majority of our business during the evening hours as opposed to the daytime.
So in this phase 1, Mike or Joshua will summarize, but in phase 1, you were saying we're going to keep on with the takeout, but we'd like to reduce some of the other every night stuff that's going on as the numbers dictate that you guys would do that and clearly communicate that back. Am I leaving something out here?
No, that's right. again, it also has to do with, the governor's orders are, once they loosen some restrictions, it'll give us a little more freedom. But I mean, is that going to be next week? Is that going to be next month? Is it going to be next, who knows? So we're prepared to shift into the next phase when we have that ability to, and when it makes sense.
And we'd like to see some of that expanded a little bit outdoor. I think as we see fit, and keep the social distancing without increasing our labor, but providing that for those people who are out there. So do we need to have a motion to accept kind of your phase one, Mike, or is it just exploratory?
Well, since I didn't send it out to you, I just did it verbally. I mean, if you're in general agreement with it, you want to do it like that. I mean, I'll send it to you after the meeting. I also will send you phase 2 as well, and I'd like you to just look through that. So if you want to just go ahead and approve essentially phase 1 like this, we're in it now, but at least it's official.
Well, maybe if you're practicing it, what we need to do is get that phase 1 and phase 2 for everybody to look at before we do an official vote off of that. How's the board feel about that?
But you're only talking food and beverage at this point.
Correct.
You haven't talked about golf. We need to talk about golf, those separate things.
I'll get Jeff on here in a second. Brianna, was there anything else? Josh, Brianna, anything else you guys wanted to talk about? We talked about the first 2 things on the agenda, and that's pretty much it, I think, for what we're going to need to discuss with the 2 of you today. So if you want to hang on, you can hang on. If you got something else you got to do, hold on for 1 second. Hold on, because we talked this morning about golf tournaments and food service as well. So let me keep you on for that. And Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can talk about operations right now.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Oh, for Josh, are we doing any calendar dates for organization for next season? Or
well, that's one of my questions that I have. I've got quite a few questions that, are we going to have association days as normal, as we normally do if we have single cart riders? We can only get, if like men's 18, the MGA, we can get 144 players out that day for 18 holes. I'm talking like January, February, March. The first 2 weeks of November are busy, that we get quite a bit of play, but the end of November for December is probably not an issue, but January, February, March, we get over 150 players. So we'd only have to do 144. Are we still going to do that? And then again, that's going to hurt a little bit of the, the food and beverage if we're having that one shotgun a month, for them to get inside the clubhouse. Are we, how are we going to fit them in there? That's a question that I have for, the budgeting process going forward.
Okay, Judy, follow up.
yeah. My question was actually like about the tennis park. Do you want dates for non-golf activities that we would normally be scheduling this time?
We have that set up in the master calendar now. We're actually going to have a meeting, I believe, next Tuesday at 10 a.m. to talk about themes and everything for next year. But that's a big question. I mean, the dates are already scheduled in the calendar, but
You'll set them at some point so we know when they are.
yes, yeah. Well, they're already set in the master calendar. I know Jeff had sent that out. I think the beginning or middle of April, but those dates are set.
Yeah, I didn't see the master for next year at all.
Okay.
Get you one.
Vince?
Yeah, we're starting to talk. I don't know if we're ready to talk about November, December, January, February, unless you want to have a general discussion about budgeting. But I mean, that's so far out in the future, and this is such a dynamic situation going on. Unless you want to say that, and my personal feeling, we're going to be on single cart golf right up through the first of the year, if not into that, until vaccine and everything, unless suddenly we feel different. But to start talking about budgeting that far out, I mean, I think it's going to be kind of tough unless you just make a general statement. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we have to talk budgeting, as the staff goes, because we're going to have to start getting budgets prepared and get to the finance committee, because we got to look at what next year's going to be like. Right now, we talked this morning and just kind of gave an overview. We generally agreed that we're going to see our revenues drop by at least 25%. we're making a whole list of assumptions. We're going on those assumptions. Something changes in the future, we can then change our numbers and change the assumption. One of the things we agreed on was for iLife, the iLife calendar, and for the social calendar. I'm rolling through someone's computer, I think. I'm feeding back through someone. For those are usually very expensive to print, and we anticipate a lot of changes. So we are going to do that digitally this year. So for the rest of this year, it'll be digital iLife calendar and program, digital social calendar. And if we have to make changes, we'll make the changes. But we basically agreed to do it businesses relatively usual, welcome back party, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, and put those dates in and plan as though it's going to be normal. But we have to then internally plan the event so it's appropriate for the environment that we're experiencing. If it's social distancing restrictions, then we have to build it that way. So we still might have New Year's Eve, but it might be a little bit different, or a lot different. So we're going to have those dates, but we're not going to. But there's, like you said, things can change. We have no idea about association days, association tournaments. That's what Jeff was getting to, and I want him to address that. How are we going to service everyone? Are we going to be able to put a full field out there? Are we going to have association days at all? So there's a lot of things that come into play here. But yeah, we're starting right now on looking forward to next year and trying to plan it out from a number standpoint. So
Okay,
Jeff,
we're back.
Go ahead.
We're back to Jeff.
I'd say if we're gonna do something like that, and since we're working towards a November assessment, I think the only prudent thing to do would be to take a worst case scenario, because we don't know the difference, right? And you're gonna have to address it with a higher assessment, assuming we're gonna have a pretty crappy year. And because if you do it the other way, we're falling short.
True. Well, that's why we said we're starting with a baseline of a loss of 25% of revenues. That could go to 50%. I hate to do it, but it could be if we can't have a full field for golf tournaments in season, if we can't do bigger events, if I can't have a welcome back party with 200 people, and I can't unless it's held outside, then that's money that's money gone from the bottom line.
I'd like to know what the rest of the board feels on that.
On what, Vince? On
whether we, for budgetary purposes, do you do a worst case scenario? Because we don't know anything different right now, okay? And I personally can't see us at this point, at least all the way through the summer into the fall. I don't see anything happening on the horizon that's going to take us to getting back to normal, okay? And I don't even know beyond normal. I think we had to stay with single cart, and that's going to kill all these events you're talking about. So I'd like to know from the board, from a budgeting standpoint, do we take this worst case scenario for budget purposes so we don't run a deficit?
Bob?
I think, you're on the right track, Vince. I agree. I'm not sure I'd call it a worst case scenario. And I think it's going to be somewhat fluid over the next few months until we approve the budget in August. So we're going to have to rely on the management team to stay on top of things and see how things are progressing. I think they're on the right track, talking about 25% less revenue. I don't know what that does to our cost structures and things like that. And what are is there any low-hanging fruit, so to speak, on any expenses that can be deferred until a following year and that sort of thing. I think we got to let it play out a little bit, but you're right. Let's give them a sense that, we certainly can't budget right now, assuming business as usual for fiscal year 21. We got to look at some kind of a worser case than normal business.
Correct.
So
we need to know.
Got to leave it up to them to determine exactly where that falls down. They know more than me anyway about how the place is operated. So as long as they have that sense, I think we're okay.
But I would think with guidelines, we need to say, okay, for instance, let's say it continues as it is right now, okay? we have a certain, and we're to continue like that through next year. Then, okay, if it improves, what's improvement? Okay, if we get to 50% of the, there's got to be some increments, because that's going to determine, and again, you're right, I agree, Bob, it's fluid. And we won't know for budgeting till we say, okay, it's August. When this is what we know now, here's put the stamp in the ground, and this is what it's going to be.
Okay, Jim, anything more to add?
No, I guess I agree with both Bob and Vince, but mostly with Bob is we need to wait till, I mean, by August, things could, who knows? August, they say all these vaccinations aren't going to work. Then we know we got a whole year. August, one of the vaccinations are working, and then we could look at things. So I think it's going to be hard for Mike and the finance committee, because they need to, by August, they need to kind of put probably two things together for us. Here's the worst case, here's the best, and this is what we suggest. So, I mean, I agree with Vince that we need to plan for the worst, but we don't know what the worst is yet. So, and I agree with Bob. Let's wait and find out. Let the finance committee figure out both ways, and let's see what happens. As fluid as this is, I don't know if anybody here can predict what August is going to be like. It might be worse, and it might be better. That's just a hard thing to choose.
Okay, thanks.
I
Paula?
would hope we're in worst case scenario right now. And if we continued at this this would be the worst case scenario. But
What you're forgetting though, Vince, is it's not necessarily the worst case scenario, because if you read all the stuff, and I know you do, there's concern about a second wave. And that could set all these openings and all these plans back if that happens. And I think that Jim's right. We just don't know. That's part of the stress. It's such unforeseen happenings, and we have no control over it. So it's hard to say what's going to be the worst case scenario. My view, though, is that we, and I'm talking, I guess, to Mike and Josh, need to go ahead and set up the calendar and plan. And in a best scenario, we could have a welcome back party held outside, a modified kind of situation, and hope for the best. But who knows? I mean, it might have to be canceled altogether. You don't know what's going to happen. So, but I would say,
to me, that would be one of the scenarios.
Okay, well, again, I think that what we have to do and rely on Josh and Brianna can take their March of this past year, overlay it to previous year averages. They can look at April, do the same thing. We get May, we get another snapshot of that compared to prior Mays. That gives us a trend, and then it gets thrown back to finance to trend that forward based on those overlays. That gives us an idea. Again, it's all going to be ballparks, but I think comparing March from this year to a year ago tells you how much it affected it. And then you go to April and do the same thing. Then by the time we get May done, at least we've got a 3-month period there of similar time frames to look at historical data compared to current data. And that can give us our range of that worst case, if we want to take it that far, in that situation. Bill?
Well, I agree with Vince. I agree with Jim. I agree with Bob. I think right now we're just in a period of, we're all just speculating. We really don't know. And I think this thing just has to play out for another month or two until we can begin to potentially zero in on something a little bit more definite. So anybody's guess right now, in my opinion.
Thanks, Bill. Judy?
Yeah, I agree with everything that everybody said. And Paula, though, that we should get the calendar set up at least, so we've got something to work off of, even if the events themselves have a different look or get canceled. I mean, I don't see how we could not go forward with some sort of a calendar.
Dennis?
I'm okay with everything's being said. I understand the complexity of it. It's not easy.
Okay. Now we want to get back to Jeff's rundown, Mike.
Yeah. Jeff, you're muted.
I'm ready. Just keeping on kind of that budget kind of issue. These things might be coming the way to the board, meaning, and again, association days going to happen. We will have single cart riders. Will they be any 9-hole restrictions whatsoever? You know, will that happen? Will they, our bag storage, if we don't have bag storage, that's 92,000 a year that'll be gone if we don't have that. Are we going to budget for walking on the golf course? You know, our outside tournaments that we're budgeting for, they'll be affected because they don't have, you know, right now it's 50. We can't do any shotguns, so that's going to be affected. Our PGA Pass and reciprocal is, you know, is that going to start soon, or is that completely out? So, I mean, a lot of these questions will be coming to the board's way pretty soon just for budgeting processes. Just letting you know too about the PGA Pass. We've getting a lot of calls for them to come out here and play. And also we've had in years past, we pre-booked the PGA Pass as well, you know, like a week and ahead of time or 4 days prior to that. We're not doing that anymore because the members have the same 2-day privilege before the PGA Pass. So I've lost about 3 or 4 groups already, probably about 100 players a month due to that, you know, kind of new process, that new policy that we have. As soon as we open up, I don't know how many clubs they can play right now, the PGA Pass. I'm looking now forward here in the next 6 weeks. But my recommendation is, if we do allow PGA Pass and reciprocals to play, is to have our members play in the morning, you know, the 7:30, and that's where they like to in the summer, from 7:30 to the 10 o'clock. And our next 12 o'clock range, have the PGA Pass reciprocal play there. So there's no member PGA Pass reciprocal, and, you know, intertwined whatsoever. But those are a lot of the questions that I have going forward that'll probably come your way. I will let you know, in the last 6 days, we've had 136 walkers, you know, probably 23 a day. We probably had our most the first day at 40. Budget-wise, for the first 6 days, we're doing pretty well. We're $5,000 over budget right now for the month, which is good. I mean, that's due to all the member play. The other question too coming up will be guest play if we're single rider, or when will guests be able to play? And let's take in the season, if we're still single cart riders, we can only get 144. Are there going to be guest restrictions, you know, during January, February, March, where we, you know, a member cannot play because another member is bringing 3 guests? So these questions will probably be raised, you know, through the golf committee maybe, and then to the board, but it could happen. Those questions could happen. Have you seen, we're doing Golf Genius tutorials on, you know, getting on the golf course, how to clean the carts. So we've had that going out to the membership. And right now, I mean, we can see the play. We've talked to a lot of members. I'd say in the next week or so, 10 days, we'll have a lot of members heading north.
Okay, Bill?
So I have a question for Jeff. You know, with social distancing we're doing, and with single cart ridership right now, and with the safety precautions that we're taking, Jeff, would there be, let's just say beginning June 1st, pick that arbitrary date, would there be a huge demand, in your opinion, for PGA Pass and reciprocal play? And if there would be, with the precautions we're taking, perhaps we would be smart to accommodate those players in that afternoon wave, as you mentioned.
I think we're going to have more PGA Pass that wish to play here than reciprocals. We're getting a lot of phone calls. I can make a call to the South Florida PGA. They can have that email sent out to every PGA Pass person, and they know we dictate the times they play. So when they called for a tee time, we'll tell them when they can or cannot play when they call 2 days prior. I think we'll definitely get more PGA Pass players than reciprocals, though. And I think if we separate the member and the PGA Pass, we can do that.
Right. Okay.
Bob, you had a comment?
Uh,
Mute. Yeah, there you go.
yeah. Are other clubs in the area accepting PGA pass players now?
Not at the moment. I think everyone's kind of hitting for that June 1st date right now.
Okay.
And also about they don't know what they're going to do like associations. I called a bunch of clubs, and it's about 50-50. The other thing about shotguns, I've called a couple courses where they have only their private golf carts. So what they're going to do is for shotguns is just have them drive out to the hole, not have them in a confined area so they can go play. And then they're doing the scores on Golf Genius. So that's how they're going to do their shotguns. But no one that has their own golf carts, meaning the club has the carts, are doing any shotguns at all, or they can't.
Okay, any follow-up with Jeff? Jim, your golf committee's gonna have their hands full working with them, getting back to us. Paula, you're on deck.
Jeff, if we did accept PGA Pass players, which, you know, I'm thinking that's okay, June 1st in the afternoon, single carts, when you contact whomever it is, the association, to send out the email, would you have to make clear that there will be no bag service, they must totally deal with their own bag, and that there will be limitations to what's available on the course, making it clear under what conditions they will be golfing?
Yeah, we'll have that explained to them. But, you know, we explain to them there's no cargo shorts or there's no coolers. You know, that's explained to them, but they bring it anyway. But we'll let them know when they get here. But they will be notified of that by email. It's a question if they read that or not.
Like anybody.
Jim?
Paula batted out of order. She was on deck.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, right now, are we filling up all the available slots, or I haven't looked at the tee sheets, or do we have available slots open right now?
Well, you know, that was another question. We did the first day. We filled up the first day, and we probably had 60 on the waiting list. Right? Since that first day, we've had open spots available. And my question is, are we going to continue walkers in the summer by having, you know, or is walkers going to continue? You know, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying on a revenue aspect, do you still want those walkers to walk, or do you want them to go back to golf carts? That's a question that's coming up too.
Yeah, I think that's coming up in our meeting.
About $100 a day.
Yeah, I think it's coming up in our meeting. Another question, we have everybody going off on the front. Could you do a crossover with all the carts? You know, I don't know if it works out. So you get more people out earlier and then do the second wave, you know, later on would get more, you know, if we didn't have any walking on the back nine, could we put carts out both and then do the crossover so we'd have more early tee time, especially during the summer, you know, how we used to do it with the carts. I mean, are we allowing walkers rather than we could have better tee times by putting carts out on both sides?
Well, if you're looking at 7:30 in the morning, the tee times till, let's say 9 o'clock, you know, the crossovers, they're still coming in at about 11. So we probably need about, you know, we're going to probably get out maybe 4 groups more doing a crossover earlier.
Yeah, but we'd have more earlier tee times for the summer,
Yes.
You know, so it would be better for our members, you know, to play that way rather than have to have an 11 o'clock or whatever the latest one is. Everybody would have a 7 to 9 tee time. I'm not here during the summer. I let Vince talk to that, but I think that might be a better idea for the summer to keep them full. But I'll let Vince talk about that.
Okay, Vince?
Okay. I had notes on this one prepared for this. So I've talked to Jeff, and I don't think we should put a magic date like June out there. We've got people right now, as long as we're filling up the carts with members, I think we should continue with members and let them go. But I think that once we see this drop off, if there is, once we run Chelsea, once it's run and Chelsea's run, and then we wind up with vacancies that he can backfill with PGA Pass or reciprocal, preferably, I would think we would get more PGA Pass, but either way, and guests, right? We would let Jeff start to fill those in as that goes. I was thinking about the same thing you did, Jim, that if we were to, let's say, I'm being hypothetical, we can send off 72 carts at a time, and then we have to wait, then we're done. Let's say we have 50 members that want to play in the summer, okay? And I don't know how many we would have. If we don't fill the 72 carts up, then why not let PGA Pass and that go off and send them off on the back instead of on the front? Okay, one Chelsea. Now, Jeff, in the summertime, how many golfers, member golfers do you send off every morning, roughly?
I would say, depending on the day, but 30 to 50 tops.
So therefore, with 30 to 50, we could send off 30 to 50 on the front 9, whoever filled up Chelsea, and then start PGA Pass on the back 9 at the same time, to Jim's point, let them come around, okay? And then when they came around, you could then clean them up and then start sending off more PGA Pass if it's available.
The only thing that I just fear a little bit, and we've talked about that, is they're going to be on the driving range with you. They're from the outside, and that's the only question. If you don't mind, I mean, they will be intertwined there. They could be outside on the tables with you. They could be out there. If that's not a problem, I don't have a problem.
Social distancing is social distancing.
Yeah.
And if we, for instance, right now, I still think we have too many stations on the driving range. They're too close together. You need to take half those stations off and space them out more, all right? Because they're even too close for members right now. And give them a bigger space, maybe not half of them, but somehow they got to be spaced. But I don't see a difference now for social distancing between a member and a PGA Pass and everything else, because we are separated, all right? As long as there's social distancing, I don't think it makes a difference. That's my input.
That's fine. I can get them in here.
Okay, Bob?
I differ with Vince a little bit. I think it does make a difference of people coming in from other areas, whether it's PGA Pass or reciprocals or guests or whatever. I think we just got to be a little bit careful and pay attention to how the governor and the U.S. government kind of loosens things up as we go forward in the next month. I do think it would be nice if we could open things up to PGA Pass and reciprocals and do it kind of the way Jeff's outlined. But let's pay attention to what the experts are saying too. And
I'm not talking about differing from the governor at all.
okay, I just want to be clear on that, Vince.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a valid point. Okay, Mike?
I had done a survey with the Sierra clubs, and about half were pretty certain that June 1st they were going to allow guests with their amenities. Only a couple said July. Some were pretty unsure, but just wanted you to be aware that everyone is thinking, no one's thinking, no, for the rest of the summer, there's not going to be a guest. They're going to start most likely June 1, at the latest July 1.
And that's I'm sure they're being hopeful that, Dennis, you had your hand up.
We've been putting out really good communications to the members, and I think they're really paying attention to it. And I'm wondering, between now and November, in which I'm kind of talking about the budget, but whether it's reference to golf or to the food side of things, is there anything that we could ask the members to do to cooperate maybe, or support even more so our budgets in terms of some of their behavior, whether it's golf or food or other ideas? Like, you're making good decisions. I'm totally supportive of everything that you're doing as a board. I'm just wondering if we can encourage some of our members to take maybe a little active part between now and November. Maybe there's certain months there where instead of going out to a restaurant, that sort of thing. And just wondering if we're asking them to participate. They're listening and they're reading everything.
Okay. Paula?
Yes, Dennis, you reminded me about the food and beverage extension. I don't know if that's what you were referring to, but we certainly have members that clearly want to use their unused minimum. Is that, should we be giving them the opportunity to do that? I just thought of that from your comments, that's all.
No, I was thinking more about how to generate some more income by them. If they're going to be faced with a $500 assessment, and it would be less if there was some more participation or support of what the board's doing. I'm just throwing that out as you're making all the decisions, and they're good ones, about what to react. I'm just wondering if there's a way for them to even be more supportive than they have been. That's all. Just it's a thought.
With so many of them being seasonal, it's a good thought. The practice of that would be the difficult part in that piece if they're not going to be here. I think people still have an aversion to getting to and from Florida unless they're driving by themselves, at least in the few people that I've talked, well, more than the few people I've talked with. So, and Paula, we're going to get to that the food minimum a little later in the meeting. Thanks. Okay, anybody else on the golf thing? I think all along we were hoping that we'd be able to exercise a PGA reciprocal action in June, but I think we just have to key off the state and federal government and see how that transpires and be ready to jump on that if we can. Any further discussion on that, Vince?
Yeah, my whole point was I don't think June is a magic number. I think we're going to see a drop off faster as far as ownership play, membership play between now and June. And I think we should give some freedom to Mike and Jeff to start making that call at some point to say, you know what? I mean, if we're going to continue with these types of calls, like on Thursdays, I think we should give them the ability to say, you know what? We're seeing a drop off, and let them be creative and say, let's start bringing in some of this revenue. Then what do we pay again, Jeff, for PGA Pass? $41 versus our $24, $23.98. So, I mean, if we could start filling in 10 PGA Pass in another week or two, 20 a day, it's a benefit. And I think that we should give them the ability to start making that call, because I do think that what they're doing with cleaning the carts, social distancing, things like that, I think we've got an opportunity here.
Well, and I think we found the Jim, and this I'll get to you just a second here, Jim. We found a working tool with this Zoom that if they come up and say, hey, we think we can do this in the next 14 days and we've got it put together, we'll Zoom it up and we can get her done and get it taken care of. It'd be very fluid. Jim?
I just thought of it now and I'll forget it later on. You said $41. Now we added a $2.50 cart fee on everyone. I don't know if Jeff's if you're gonna add it to that or how that works with the with even the reciprocals. I don't know how that works. Are we raising the reciprocals by $2.50 and are we raising the PGA Pass by $2.50? I think we probably should. I don't know if we thought about that, but it just came up.
Good point. Good point.
I would do.
How could there?
Jeff.
Well, anybody.
I've spoken to them already that we are going to raise the PGA Pass $2.50. They'll have to call in and we'll have to get their payment prior to play because they can't come into the golf shop. So they'll know that payment prior to that. So they'll pay it. Our reciprocal information have yet to gone out. I think you gentlemen and ladies are going to see that today, maybe the final, because we had certain questions Mr. Ziegler I think is going to ask you before that goes out. So we'll put that in the reciprocal information when that goes out to the other clubs.
Okay, good. Paula, do you have your hand up?
Well, just to address what Jeff was talking about, to make sure that they know that the $2.50 is a tip for the men working on the course, that it's the cart guys, it's not an increase in our fees for that play. And maybe you also need to say that we discourage the use of cash?
Well, when they call to make a tea time, we will definitely explain to them all that prior to that. And they'll have to pay by credit card before that.
As long as
Okay.
they know. Yep.
Vince?
Yeah, Jeff brought up a good point the other day when we were out there finished golfing, and I didn't realize, he said that what they do is they have pre-booked a lot of these groups, like he just mentioned, ahead of time. And because of the change we made in the Chelsea, with members being able to book a tea time, it kind of pushed some of that out. When I made that proposal, I really wasn't thinking May through October. I was thinking more October, November, December timeframe. Maybe because of this coronavirus thing and that loss of revenue, maybe we should rethink it. And I know I'll have a couple members I know that will not like the idea because they like they don't like the fact that a PGA pass can be booked in advance. But Jeff was talking about some substantial numbers that we lost as far as income. And I don't know how much of that we could recoup or if it's even necessary. Maybe if we're open, Jeff, where other clubs and everything are, maybe that's not a point. Maybe we can still fill up our carts.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, anything else on the golf operations we need to cover?
There is a golf shop Facebook page though now. So please go on Facebook and like it
Okay.
for merchandise. Okay, I don't have anything else. Josh, do you have any other comments? Again, I just want to go back again to an important point. You know, Jeff is going to do some research. I know Josh is going to do some research, but how our tournaments are going to be able to run. So not only just this summer, how it's going to affect food and beverage. You know, with the if we can't have more than 50 people going out for an event, how much that's going to reduce our income. So you're going to hear more about this. It's just that right now we're trying to research it all. It's going to go through the budget process, and you'll hear about it then. But it could affect us significantly. That's all.
Okay.
Can I ask Jeff a question before he goes?
Okay, Judy.
Somebody asked me, like, if they have their club since all this has started and they're going home soon, can you give the clubs back, you know, till the fall? Will they take the clubs again?
Yeah, we're gonna put that information out. I'm gonna do a video probably today or tomorrow, and we'll let them know. We've already had members leave their clubs in the bag storage. They've gone up north. I'll just tell them to tell the bag attendant when they finish the round. If they're not coming back for their bag, they're more than welcome to leave it in storage.
You will take them again. That's what I wanted. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it, there's nothing else, then Josh, Brianna, thanks. You can stick around if you like, or you can go. Jeff, same thing goes for you. Appreciate you being here.
Jeff,
Thanks,
stay
folks.
for the pedestrian on golf course discussion.
Well, Jeff, you want to stick around for that? We can bring that up next.
Okay. Let's jump ahead to what item is that on there? That is I lost my agenda.
Number 5. It's 5.
Item 5, Jim.
Okay. I've lost my hard copy. I don't know where it went. Okay, item number is that guest and quarantine policy? Which one am I in here?
It's the
Oh, that's wrong.
pedestrians on the golf course.
Pedestrians on the golf course requests. Okay.
Well,
I've got that as item 4, but all right, fire away.
Well, you know, last meeting we decided against walking on the golf course, and I had a number of members who have written a request. Some have had a very lengthy request, and others just simply said, please see if you could bring it back. And I forwarded that on to the board. I just wanted to have a conversation with everyone about that. It seems as though they're not concerned about the morning. They used to be able to walk on the golf course like after 7 o'clock. and they're just asking that that comes back. It's kind of a quality of life thing. Has everyone seen emails that we had forwarded? I think Mr. Horvath sent one. I think Mr. Keith sent one. A couple other members had sent a request to be able to walk on the golf course again. Very limited times. So I'm just going to turn it over to the board and just let you talk about it.
Thanks, Mike. Let's start at the opposite end of the screen this time. Judy, we'll kick off with you.
Yeah, I've been a proponent of this, a sensible allowance of exercise on the club. We voted one way, we voted the other way and stuff. I was thinking about this morning, and I wonder if we shouldn't get a committee going and actually find out how much of the membership is interested in this, how much isn't, how much people have, because I don't think we know. We heard from the people that didn't want it, then we heard from the people that did want it, but I'd like to do this in a little more depth so we can really be a better representation of 847 doors and see what people are thinking. So I would suggest that we get a committee to work on this.
Okay. Bill, you want to?
Well, Judy, how would you, are you proposing like a survey of membership?
The committee might go that route. Yeah, I'd say get a couple people that are maybe involved a little bit, neutral people, let's say. And I think, yeah, we should maybe ask, and I know, Paula, you don't like surveys and stuff, but I think we should think of, how many people walked over this time? We don't know. They've never been calculated or quantified, and how many people enjoyed it, how many people didn't. We heard from less than 10 people. So
I have a feeling if you do a survey and you ask people, would you like the ability to pedestrian walk on the course, even if they didn't take advantage of that during the coronavirus time frame, I think you're going to get a lot of people that just say yes, just for the heck of it. And then I think the survey may be skewed.
Maybe the questions need to be thoughtful. Maybe a group of people can figure out what to ask so it's not skewed either way. But, finding out who did enjoy it and then finding out what they think the benefits. I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying that maybe we should give this a little more thought and let somebody work on it and present something to us.
Okay, Paula, I'm going to go to you.
I think that I hear where you're coming from, Judy. I know your intentions are well meant, but my problem with it is that it slows everything down. Form a committee, send out a survey, analyze it, come back. By the time we do all that, it's going to be through the summer. I think the people we heard from, the Horvaths and the Keiths in particularly, and I did write down the names of the other people we heard from, but I think that the Horvaths and the Keiths have a pretty good handle. Well, Larry Keith said he even surveyed the members of his neighborhood, and a number of them wanted to be able to walk. So I think you overanalyze and you take too much time. I think that it's a decision that we should be able to make, especially with you guys who were there and actually saw how many people were walking on the course. I know you didn't have exact numbers, but anecdotally, you probably could tell how popular it was. I am sympathetic to walking on the course. I realize it's dangerous, and there was one member who wrote quite an extensive note about legal liability and what would happen if somebody got hurt who was walking on the course. So that's certainly something to consider.
But Paula, are you talking about walking when they're playing golf?
No, pedestrians. No. Pedestrians.
Well, if you were hurt in the street, they'd sue us too. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
I'm sympathetic to allowing this to happen because there are non-golfers in our community, and it would be nice for them to see how beautiful the course is. However, I also recognize that as soon as you allow it, there will be people and guests who will abuse it. So it's like walking a tightrope, I'm in favor, but I recognize that it has its pitfalls.
Jim?
I think we're all talking about allowing walking when we are not using the golf course for its true purpose.
Yes.
Almost all the emails that I read, they want to walk in the morning. The golf course now, just because when you had the virus, we had part of the golf course that was not used. But once we go back to normal, and even now in the morning, the golf course, both sides are being used. To allow somebody to walk on the golf course, we're basically cutting out some tee times and stuff like that. Now, I have no problem with in the evening when we slow down and stuff like that. And I would defer to Jeff when the course is not going to be used for golfing, to allow some walking. But come November, our golf course is full of golfers, and that's what it's designed for. You know, because when we do the crossovers and you do other things, there's just not, I mean, I'll defer to Jeff, but when we're busy, and even now in the morning, I don't know where we're going to fit 2 hours to let 9 holes lay, you know, so we have walkers. I think probably in the evening we'll have some time, but that's not the time they were looking for. They were looking for morning. So I'd defer to Jeff of when he thought there would be times that we could do that. That's not going to hurt our revenue or the purpose of the golf course, hurt the golfers.
And I agree with them.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, Dennis?
I'm being facetious. Before dawn and after sunset. I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it at this point. I'd love to be able to do it. Certainly not in the morning, maybe in the evening. I agree with what Jim said. If Jeff has a thought on when it might be reasonable and safe to do it in the evening, and make sure it was really clear that it's just for some interim period. And certainly it's going to, you know, once you get into November, it's getting dark early anyway, but I guess I'm still where I was before, that we're better off just not allowing it.
Okay, thanks. Vince?
I would, first of all, I agree with Jim that number one, we should, you know, if we start allowing golf, there's golfers that golf in the morning. I saw them, I was out there walking this morning, and a lot of, there were some ladies out there, they play 9 holes, they walked this morning. I'm having dinner out here at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. We see people coming up 16. So I don't know if they're even right now. There is a time. There may be gaps, okay? But there's people that will go out after dinner and play 9 holes and walk and play some golf. And then there's been people, obviously the more desirable is in the morning, and they're there. I agree with Jim too that in season, you know, you might as well forget about it. I mean, people are on the course, we got carts going. And I think if we get more people coming back here and we're still on single carts, walking golf is going to be much more desirable. And we're going to have a lot more people walking on the course as well. But I would go back. I was not here when we stopped allowing people on the golf course. I mean, I was here. I was not on the board when we did it. But I can tell you from having played reciprocal at numerous courses in Southwest Florida, I don't know anybody that allows it. Signs are all over the place. There were signs before we decided to do it. Mike, I would defer to you. Why is it that all these courses don't allow walking on the golf course?
I mean, I think it goes back to safety with maintenance equipment or golf balls, one or the other. That's why we stopped 3 years ago. It was a maintenance and safety issue. You know, I guess I was, you know, if Jeff could say that, you know, 7:30 or 8 o'clock, you know, there's not going to be any other golfers out there. There's certainly not going to be any maintenance equipment. That would be okay to me. I would not recommend the morning at all, period. But you know, I would think late evening might be a possibility.
Yeah, I don't recommend mornings myself.
I think that, yeah, okay, morning I think is a tough one to police.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
No.
Okay, I think, one of the most difficult things is when you get letters that are nicely written like the Horvaths or even like Larry's. They weren't demanding and they weren't being unruly. They were stating their real feelings, and it's tough to just come out and say no to those pieces. But again, being on the board as long as I have, I can tell you that it always has been and remains a safety issue. We discounted and people said, I don't want people walking at night. They may look in my windows, you know, in those pieces. That was just about as unsupported as people saying, I should have a right to walk in that golf course because I paid my association fees. It really came back down to, as I said before, it was handled with safety and security when Sandy Barnum was chair. And it really became a safety issue that was our main concern. We're always going to have inconsistencies when we have visitors and guests and kids and grandkids come down at different times, that when you allow walking at certain times, it's very hard to police that. When we have outside visitors, it's tough enough to get people comply that know the rules. So again, that all came back to safety and consistency in that piece. And we always felt the golf course maintenance crew has to get their work done. And we have to allow people out on the golf course as quickly as we can in the mornings. And in the summertime, of course, you may have fewer golfers, but everybody wants tee times before 10:30 in the morning, basically, because of the temperatures. So that would only leave an option really of evening, and for consistency's sake, I would still say safety's our main concern there. I think that's why the Audubon tours that we used to do in the spring went over so well. It gave people an opportunity to go out on the course, don't you think, Mike? Where that they spent that 3 hours out there touring the course, learning about the plants and the birds. So anyway, that's kind of a little history to go with all that. It really came back to safety, not that people shouldn't be able to appreciate the beauty out on the course. But I hate turning a stone shoulder to letters that are nicely written, like Vince and Kathy. It's always nice when somebody wants something changed that they tell you how they feel instead of telling what you should do. I think we always have to address that the most eloquent way we can and take care of it and rely on not putting Jeff on the spot and not putting Mike on the spot or Ben, but taking all of their thoughts together and saying, in consulting with them, here's the issue and here's what our decision is, and we move forward from there. I don't think another committee studying it will find any more true statements of why they want to walk on the course than what we see from people that present it the right way. It just comes back to safety again, in my opinion.
If we said you could walk on the front 9 from 7:30 at night on, would that address many of your concerns?
Why does it have to be the front 9 at 7:30?
There wouldn't be any golfers, because there wouldn't be golfers starting on the front 9. So I'm just trying to think of something that would completely eliminate the idea that we were going to have golfers on the course. Nobody was going to start 9 holes at 7:30 at night. That's the reason I brought it up. So would that answer? I don't think they're going to be doing maintenance at 7:30 at night.
No.
Well, I think part of the safety issue there too, Judy, would be on the people out on the course after dark, even if they're staying on the cart path. I think would be a safety issue too. Not necessarily the maintenance crew or the golf balls, which neither one of those are good combinations for pedestrians.
Also, too, don't assume that
daylight
golfers,
savings.
don't assume that people start walking on hole number 1, because people, when they can walk on the course, they just walk on the course wherever they can get on the golf course,
And walk out of their home.
and they
Would you
walk
say
wherever they
they'd
want.
be finished at 7:30? Would they be finished at 9? Hole 9?
I would think so.
So even if they started on 9, because the person that said you can't walk them in reverse order or a few at a time, I don't think that's valid. So if I was on hole 9 at 7:30 at night, And I wouldn't be out there in January when it was dark. I'd be out there when it was nice out. You know, people don't want to walk to hurt themselves. People just want to.
My point, Judy, was because you say if you can start walking at a given time, all right, that doesn't mean they're going to go to the 10th hole or the first hole and start walking, all right? People that have been walking on the course just get out onto the course wherever they can, start walking. So they could be very much, if you've got people on the course playing golf, all right, that doesn't mean that they can't be walking and all of a sudden they're going to be commingling.
So is there a time that on one of the nines, I assume the front, that really there aren't ever going to be golfers on? What time is that? If 7:30 isn't the right time, I was wondering what the time would be.
I think that your expectation that people will walk just on the front nine, I hear where you're coming from because no new golfers will be setting out. But the reality is people walk out their lanai, regardless of what hole they're on. If I can walk on the golf course at 7 p.m. or 7:30 p.m., I am not going to walk from my house or my villa or my condo to the first tee or the whatever tee and start walking the course. I'm going to walk to the nearest access point, walk a couple holes, and then turn around and come back.
This is Bob. I wasn't called on, but Jim wasn't paying attention, so I'm talking anyway. I think over the last few meetings, we've talked enough about this. I just think we should just flat not allow any pedestrians. There's not enough time for a long enough period of time to worry about this. So they've had the opportunity, and I took advantage of it several times in the last 5 or 6 weeks to walk the course and see it. I'd love to be able to do it, but it's a golf course, like we said at the last meeting. And yeah, I don't think there's an easy way to just to say pedestrians can go on at 7 or 7:30 or 8 and be sure that they're going to go on at the right spot at the right times. And it's going to be a hard thing to do. And unless Jeff has some magic idea of how this would really work and not interfere with possible golf play, I just don't think it's worth allowing it. That's how I feel. We've talked about this a lot, and I can't keep talking about it, so I'm going to mute myself.
Thanks. Well, I kind of agree with Bob. And again, I know Vince and Kathy, and I know Larry and MJ. I just think I prefer to not have pedestrians walking on the golf course, and that's my own personal opinion into that piece. I think this overall safety and liability is something I just don't want to see us exposed to in that regard. So I would agree with Bob. Anybody else?
I think that's a simple approach because no matter what we said, time, access, whatever, it would be abused, and people wouldn't remember the rules. So in that regard, as much as I'd like to walk the course and see non-golfers walk the course, you're right. I mean, it's just not feasible.
I would add to that, in season, I think it's a definite no for sure. And I'll tell you what, my wife and I were walking this morning and walking the course. The number of walkers is way down. Walking golfers, I'm sorry. Pedestrians walking on the street, it's way down, okay? I think that, people have left and I don't know how many of them have decided not to walk only because they can't walk on the course. But I tend to agree with Bob, and my vote would be we may have some people that would like to do it. We also have had people, I've got the other emails from Christine Hamilton, Christine Cunningham, and others that are vehemently the other way about it. So.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it as is at this point in time, Judy. And again, we're all open to serving the people at Spring Run when we can come up with something consistently could be taken care of. So if no other comments on this section, we'll move on to is that guest and quarantine policy?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Well, part of it is that I think what I wanted more than anything was just to get your feelings on, what we should do as far as guests and what we should be doing as far as telling people to quarantine. Again, I'm gonna give me 1 second. I'll just pull up this survey. I think I can share it. Guess I can share it. No, I don't know how to do that yet.
Screen share at the bottom. Go to the bottom and the green screen share. That does it. It's got to be in the same screen as your computers.
Yeah, it'd be a little green square.
Are you on your computer, Mike?
Yeah.
At the bottom of the screen, it says share in green box. Bring your mouse all the way down.
No, doesn't want to share it. Okay, there's that.
There, yep, we got it.
There you go. Okay.
There you go.
So this goes to show you, these are all the clubs. Just list them off here: Stony Brook, Forest Glen, Copperleaf, Legends, Pelican Landing, Stonebridge, Naples Heritage, Worthington, Countryside, Glen Eagles, Vasari, Pelican Sound, Kelly Greens, Heritage Oaks, Vanderbilt, Cedar Hammock, Cypress Woods, The Blades, Us, Heritage Palms, Heritage Sterling Oaks, and Naples Lake. So these are the clubs. They're all the HOAs, the Sierra clubs that I've been communicating with and trying to keep on the same page with as far as what they're doing. We wanted to figure out what was happening in May, and as you can see, almost to pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's only a few that said you could not have guests at all in the community. There was just a couple, but I guess there's only 3 that said that the guests could use the amenities. But when I asked them more of when reciprocals or guests could be permitted, even though a lot were unsure, and it looks like some people have not even answered. But it looks like they're leaning more towards nothing in May, but definitely towards June. And then if you look at the quarantines, it's almost, if you're from out of state or from the tri-state area, definitely. That seems to be the hot zone, the tri-state area. That's the primary one. But if I had somebody because I've had a number of people who have said they were going to come here from, say, Illinois, and which I guess you don't really consider it as a hot zone area, maybe Michigan and Detroit, yes. They want to know if they come down here for a week, if they want to play golf, are they going to be quarantined? And so right now we're telling them yes. I wanted some thoughts from the board as far as, is this something that should be relaxed? Should we continue it from just the hot zones in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut? Should we relax that?
How do you police it, Mike? How do you police it?
It's impossible to police.
That's right.
The only thing you can do is you can say they can't use the golf course. But see, I've had owners who want to come back for a week, and they say, well, if I have to quarantine for a week, then what's the sense in even coming down? So I just wanted your thoughts on this.
Yeah, and Mike and I had a conversation earlier in the week pertaining to a request of an owner in Whining Stream. And Chris Hamilton had called me and said, what's the board's position on owners coming down here? Do they have to be quarantined for the 14 days, et cetera? I replied to her that we would probably follow whatever mandate the governor put out. And so she got back to the person and said, you'd have to be quarantined. Well, he's not from a hot spot. He's the hot spots in New York, Connecticut, Louisiana. There was one other one I can't think of right now. And he said, I'm not trying to go behind anybody's back, and I'm not trying to be upset. I just would like to know it doesn't seem consistent. And I said, well, each association can have their own guidelines into that piece. And again, he was very polite. And Mike did this survey of the other people, and it is hard to police it. And that's what I stressed to him, that we've been fortunate in Spring Run, And we don't want people coming in from the outside that could actually expose our patrons to that. We don't know when you fly on an airplane, are you going nonstop? Is it a light load or is it a heavy load on the plane, and all those things. So I think we do need to come to something that's consistent. And Dennis, I don't know if we can reach out to all the presidents and ask them what each association is looking at in respect to that. Do they follow the governor's guideline of hot spots only into that piece as far as the quarantine, but still maintain social distancing? So that brings you up to date on what Mike and I have talked about in this from one specific example.
Aren't we right now, the way we're handling it with social distancing and spraying down the carts and everything else, aren't we assuming that somebody's coming in here that has COVID-19 or as a carrier? We're assuming it anyway.
We're presuming that, so we're trying to take precautions.
Yeah, but we are presuming that. And so, you know, at some point we're gonna have to start to relax to some degree, I think, or not at all, or not at all. You know.
Bob?
Well, you're right, but I don't think this is the time to relax. I flew back to Massachusetts last week, and I've got a quarantine for 2 weeks. I wasn't really coming from a hot spot. I don't think Spring Run's a hot spot, but you're passing through terminals and you're on an airplane with people and et cetera. It's a normal, I mean, everybody accepts that, you know, in most states. That's really the requirement in Massachusetts, as in many states. It's hard, they can't police it, really.
And how do we police PGA Pass and reciprocal?
Well, that's my point. You can't really police it, but
Then to that point, we should not allow PGA Pass or reciprocal because we can't police that.
Well, but Jeff had said.
I hadn't finished my thought, Vince, so
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I don't know what I was going to say. You drowned me out.
Okay. Again, Jeff had talked about separation on that golf. Jim?
I would say once we start allowing PGA Pass, whenever that is, we can't have an owner quarantine when you got a PGA Pass who could have just came down. For the next 2 weeks, I mean, this is my suggestion. We're not going to allow PGA Pass this week and probably not next week. So as long as we're not allowing PGA Pass, I don't have a problem keeping the policy that, you know, you can't use the golf course and stuff for the 2 weeks quarantine. Now, there'll be people that'll come down and you won't know when they'll slip through and stuff, but I still think I don't have a problem with the policy. You know, once we start allowing outside guests in, I don't think you can tell an owner, you got to wait 2 weeks and we're going to allow an outside person. I think that's, to me, that would be the key time when we could relax our current policy of, you know, the 2 weeks quarantine. And that might be a week, that might be 2 weeks, that'd be up to the Jeff and stuff, but I think that'd be the key point. But right now, somebody comes down, if I just came in, I would quarantine myself anyways, but I think that's a good idea. I think that's what Bob was trying to say. Right now, we should probably keep our policy, even though there will be some people who won't, but once we start allowing outsiders come in and use it, and, you know, and guests and stuff like that, then I think that policy should be relaxed.
Good observation.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Keep it as is.
So we're going to keep it as is. Mike, I'll reach out to that fellow from Pittsburgh that was coming, because they were going to come in the end of May. And I'll say something to him, see what he wants to do. Okay. Next is extension of the food and beverage minimum.
Well,
We've had a couple people ask about that. I think Tony Castle and we had one other one. Bob?
How much, Mike, if you know, how much money is kind of left unspent by people at this point? Do you have any feel for that? I mean, I've gone way over my 750. I'm just trying to get a feel for what is it.
I need to rerun it. In March, it was 196,000.
Wow.
That people had not spent.
Right. I
Okay.
mean, usually when we go through March and April, I mean, that takes care of a bulk of it. And then, you know, it gets spent over the summertime, and then people come back in October and finish up. So we end up with, you know, $20,000 net left over, and that just goes to the bottom line. You're going to have considerable more money out there in October. Some people were asking if we could just move it back. We've never made a recommendation. We've never changed this policy. As many other policies we've had, this was the one policy we've never changed, because so many people say, well, I was ill, I was sick, I couldn't come here. Can I please get it forgiven or rolled over? And we've never allowed that. This is a different situation. I don't think we have to make this decision today. Maybe we can wait, till next month and look at the numbers again and kind of start to figure out, based upon our budget, where we're going to be and if it's a good idea or not. I mean, if it's a matter of, eating $20,000 or $30,000, I mean, that's significant. Maybe if it's 10, that's another story. But I do think we have to at least get a better idea of how the end of the year is going to be. That said, this is an unprecedented situation. So if you guys want to move it back, roll it over, we can do that as well too.
Jim?
I agree. I don't think we need to make the decision now. The people I, empathize with are the people who had to leave here. Now, I don't know when Mr. Castle left, but he's been here for quite a while. And I had this conversation with somebody else that they still had money on their minimum, and they have an opportunity to spend it. I mean, we're offering dinners every single night and stuff like that. So the people who are still here and have been here and knew this I don't have a sympathy for them. I mean, I don't know when they were planning on spending. And as you said, some people don't spend it until October and they come in and they got to spend it anyways. But the people who had to go home, I don't know where Paula's situation is, but maybe you didn't spend it and you had to leave. I have sympathy with them. I hate to pick and choose, but some of the complaints that I've had are people who, I was talking to somebody and they go, well, I didn't spend my minimum. And I says, well, what are you doing for dinner tonight? I said, here's the easy way to spend your minimum. We're providing dinner. We're not closed. You can still spend your minimum and stuff like that. So those people I really don't empathize with. Like Mike said, maybe we should wait till later on before we push it out or whatever and see how it is.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, and I agree. Let's wait a little bit. But and I agree with what you're saying, Jim. It's hard. It's going to be hard to differentiate that. A lot of people, rightly or wrongly, spend the minimums going to some of the big functions that we might have towards the end of the year, whether it be the tennis banquet or the year-end parties or whatever, the bocce banquet, and that goes towards their minimum. So they kind of plan to use it then. I agree. They had plenty of opportunity if they were there in the last couple of months to spend the money. But it was an unusual circumstance. So I could see liberalizing it a little bit, but why don't we wait, see what the number looks like after another month and make a decision.
Sounds good. And we might get Judy?
Well, just point of information, anything that has music can't be applied to the minimum. So most of the big parties, it can never be used.
Well, that's for anything we subsidize, like for the tennis party or the bocce party. If the association is paying for it, that's a different situation. The food portion would go to it. But if we have a band like Billy Dean and Dawn come in, then that event does not go to the
Yeah.
food.
Okay. And again, it'd be a tremendous amount of work to do again an overlay of how much each person has left unspent and compare it to what they had a year ago. This is a special time, and I think we're going to have to give due consideration to some type of thing we look at, whether or not we initiate it or not. But I think we really have to go through that and have our act together on that. Vince, you want to add something?
I just want to find out, the food and beverage minimum, if you sit back and think about it, the reason we have a food and beverage minimum is because we want to basically ensure that a certain number of people contribute X amount of dollars so that we don't have to, if we didn't have a food and beverage minimum, everybody would have to pay a subsidy more. And that's really what it's for. So I hate to, put a wet rag on this one, but, if you didn't use it, that's your fault. You should use it. That's what it's there for. Because if you don't use it, okay, it's because you didn't, as was pointed out by Jim, you didn't have an opportunity. I feel bad for the people that had to leave early, that were down here and didn't have a lot of time and everything else, but it's part of the cost of having this community. And it's been something that has been set forth. The other option is just don't have a food and beverage minimum, and we'll have to basically build that into the assessment.
Judy, Paula, excuse me.
2 points. First of all, Vince, it is harder for me as a single person to use my food and beverage minimum than it is for all the couples. You and Kim are 2 people you mentioned. But the other point I want to make, we talked earlier, it was referred to, that we may have to have a special assessment in lieu of all that's happened. Somebody used the figure $500 per door earlier in this meeting. And what's crossing my mind is it would be a gesture of goodwill if we were somehow, we could set the terms of how it would work, accommodating to people who, under these unprecedented circumstances, did not use their food and beverage minimum. I'm inclined, and even if people did, couples especially, it's easy for them. They would get the notice that we're doing it, and it is a gesture of goodwill and saying to our members, we do understand that these were exceptional circumstances. This would be a one-time only. We don't expect it to happen again. I just throw that out there for consideration. That's all.
Go ahead, Bob.
Point of clarity, we have not had any discussion about any special assessments, $500 or any amount.
But earlier this meeting, somebody used the number $500.
Dennis said that as an example of, I don't know what the heck he was talking about, I can't remember, but we're not talking about a special assessment right now.
Okay.
Let's not have anything go out of this meeting that we're considering a special assessment right now.
We'll edit
If
that
it
out.
did, it came from finance.
We'll edit that out for the recording.
Excuse me, Mike?
I said we'll edit that out of this recording.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I stand corrected. I did hear that number earlier, and that's what I was focusing on.
I think it is early in this. We need to get through this month and then take a look at that going in towards the August budget meetings of looking at that and see how it all applies. Any further discussion on that to do with the food minimum? Okay, next we'll move to the PPP loan update. Mike, Bob?
You want to take this, Mr. Owens, or do you want me to?
Well, I'd rather start and then you can correct me. How's that? So we had a meeting with a specialist on PPP loans from our auditing firm on Tuesday. Michelle, myself, and Mike, and kind of dotted the I's, crossed the T's on stuff we kind of already knew and agreed to, but there's a lot of details. It gets a little bit complex when you're doing the calculations, and it's enough money involved here, not only the loan amount, but the fact that it's could be and should be forgiven. It's like a grant, makes a huge difference. So we wanted to be as sure as possible. Michelle's doing a bang-up job doing the calculations. The gentleman agreed with the calculation that was done. We didn't review the calculation, but the methodology we used to do the application gave us no indication that we were not qualified. So we still believe, as we talked about before, that we've done everything proper to be qualified, and we're acting in good faith in making the application and in receiving the money. We were funded on the 29th of April. So that gets to the point of how do you determine what's the forgivable amount? And that gets a little bit involved, not too complicated, but just the detail, devil's in the detail. But it really relates to your payroll, mostly your payroll expenses in the 8 weeks after you get funded. So from April 30th to, I think it's June 23rd, whatever that 8-week period is. And it has to do importantly with cash, what cash gets paid out. So not what your payroll accrual might be, but what did you pay in payroll? You also can include, things like, health benefits, premium for healthcare and things like that. The payroll and related costs has to be 75% of the forgivable amount, and then you can build in some utility costs and there's certain other costs that probably don't apply to us to also get forgiven. But that can't exceed 25% of the total. Michelle's done some estimates on that, on what the next 8 weeks looks like. And I haven't had a chance to really look at that. I don't know if Mike has, but we're pretty sure we understand how to do the calculation. And we want to try to maximize the forgiveness amount. So if the loan was $750,000 that we were funded, and it's approximately that, we want to make sure that that full 750 gets forgiven. So we want to make sure we have covered expenses, which is the payroll and some utility costs, things like that, covered expenses. We want to make sure we have enough of those so that we get the full amount of the loan forgiven. And that we have to have those expenses in cash in that 8-week period. So it's a little bit involved, but I think I'm more comfortable with having talked to the accountant about it. I can't say that anybody is 100% sure because there's still a lot of rules and regs that have not been finalized, but we're comfortable that we've done all the right things, and it should, everything should work out in our favor for this loan. So that's a big plus to this organization to help pay for some of our costs this year. Mike, what can you add to that?
Well, I think that, what we have a good roadmap here and a game plan, but, it's going to rely, there were 3 different stages or some different issues we had to consider. One is getting the loan. 2 is then making sure documentation of everything. Number 2 is then making sure that you maintain your full-time equivalent employees over this period of time. Because that's the first thing that an auditor is going to look at. Not us as an auditor, but some IRS auditor who comes in and looks at all these loans. They're going to be making sure that you maintained your staff at the same levels from when you were funded. So now one good thing is that and Mr. Owens, I think they said that they're not going to be paying attention to many of the loans under $2 million. They might scrutinize everything over 2 million more. They may still look at us, but it wasn't my impression that they were really too concerned about anything under $2 million. Is that correct? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
The Secretary of the Treasury, Mnuchin, said they're going to look at all these loans $2 million and above, for sure, and then others as appropriate, I think is the quote. So that gives us some comfort that they probably won't get down to our level.
So there's the full-time equivalent issue, and then there was a complete curveball they threw at us on Tuesday. I had no idea that was coming, but they said that essentially there's a third potential amount of money they could reduce off of the forgiveness amount, and it's kind of a wild card. I don't think, if I'm trying to remember if they actually had written the rules on it yet. They wrote the rules on it, but everyone's reading it differently, and they're concerned that you could lose 25% of your forgiveness right off the bat when you go to ask for the forgiveness from the bank. And it's not the bank that would do it; it would be the SBA.
Yes, the SBA. And I think, Mike, it had to do with the way the law was written. It referred to a 2.5-month period for the base payroll wages, average wages, compared to an 8-week period that's the covered period. So automatically you're kind of behind the 8 ball the way it was written. Everybody thinks it was written improperly and it's going to get corrected. As a matter of fact, it was written contrary to what the Senate bill said, which was more consistent. Obviously, an 8-week period should be compared with an 8-week period rather than with a 2.5-month period, a 10-week period. So I think that was the thing, and they think it will get corrected, but right now it's kind of up there. It's out there. It could hurt us, but that's not going to be the end of the world. It'll just mean we won't get full forgiveness. We'll get, still the lion's share of forgiveness. But hopefully they'll correct it.
And I think, Mr. Owens, you saw the spreadsheet that Michelle sent to you?
Yes.
Okay, so Michelle, I'll give her a little kudos. She worked very hard on getting a spreadsheet together that would encompass all of the different payrolls, kind of a worst case, or at least an option that's most likely. And then if we could add one of the payrolls in, if it's going to work, because this is on a cash basis, so it depends. I think there's a day difference that we may disqualify us from adding that payroll into the total. But she's calculated the portion the club pays on the IRA for each employee, the portion that the club pays for the medical, and she's thrown utilities in there. And so, interestingly enough, RSM McGladrey, when we had the meeting on Tuesday, they said, click here or let us know. We're going to send you some tools that we've done. Well, they haven't really done anything. We've called other clubs, Stonebridge, Copperleaf. They haven't even begun this. Michelle just sat down. We just, hammered away at it, and she got it done. And it's, it's going to need some tweaking and cleaning up. But really props to her for getting that together, because, it's being done before pretty much anybody. And interestingly enough, we've done other spreadsheets for our auditors that they ended up using with other clubs. Instead of them creating something, they just used, kind of took hers and used it for other clubs. So, she's on the ball, and I just wanted to let you know that, she's one of the first people to have created something like this.
Thanks.
I agree.
Questions, follow up?
Hey, Mike, you mentioned a couple other clubs. Have other clubs been funded?
Yes. Let's see here. It's Stony Brook. Copperleaf told me they had been, but I don't think they were. They have a number. Heritage Palms, I believe, was funded. Somebody who had been with, not have to pull it up, it's on my computer, but somebody who had been with Finemark, or not, Wells Fargo went to Finemark, and they ended up getting funded. So the clubs that actually Finemark have worked with have had success. Interestingly enough, like Bank of America, one of them that the clubs didn't get through yet. So there's only a handful out of the clubs that I showed you earlier, 20 or so clubs that are HOAs, Sierra clubs. Out of that, I would say maybe 4 or 5 have been funded. That's it.
Wow.
We should know about the forgiveness portion. I think he said like a month or 2 after that 8-week period is up. So we should know by the time we're finalizing the budget in August, the amount that we are being forgiven, subject to audit down the road by somebody who the heck knows. But so we will know how much that helped us for this fiscal year.
Great.
Correct.
Great, thanks. We want to move on into that next one on the compensation committee discussion on the additional week of hourly then, Mike?
Yeah, sure. So this current pay period that we're in, only 1 week of this pay period did we have cart golf. So we didn't have, the golf operations staff was at home. They weren't working. So, and everyone else was working. Well, and some people were working from home. But the point is that those guys would get only 1 week. They'd only have 1 week where they would clock in and actually work. So my recommendation would be to approve one last week of virus PTO, 40 hours for full-time people and 20 hours for part-time people, to cover the period of April 24th through April 30th. And that portion, actually, she added in for the purposes of the analysis into that spreadsheet that I had sent to Mr. Owens earlier today. So it's in there. It equals about $40,000. Now that portion of, when that goes into this calculation for the PPP forgiveness, so it would be covered, barring any unforeseen issues with the IRS or the Small Business Administration. So I'm recommending that we do that now. I'm not going to say anything or make any recommendations yet about any like food and beverage salaried staff. Again, those people have been working while other people necessarily haven't been, and I do think that needs to be addressed at some point, even if it's just a simple bonus here or there. But I did tell them, because of this calculation for the forgiveness, you kind of have to get your hands around the whole thing and make sure you've covered everything, and then you can kind of work backwards and see what you have to to add into it for anything over and above. So I've just asked that we just take our time with that one. We'll next meeting or next week or 2 weeks, we'll go ahead and figure that out. But in the meantime, we were just recommending this 1 week of PTO. Mr. Voters?
Bob, were you going to motion that up?
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jim. Okay, we'll open up discussion now. Jim?
Question on that. So we're going to give them a week more. So the people who stayed home will get paid. The people who worked will get a extra week vacation at some time. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct. That's how it's set up. As a side note, in order to, since everything here is being calculated on a cash basis, it looks like we would be better off once we could accrue their PTO, but we want them to actually cash it and spend it over the next 7 weeks, because then it can be included. If it goes beyond, into next year, and that's something I hadn't understood previously, then it's going to be, it would not be included in that total amount.
Well, that's kind of what I was even brought up before, is we might have been better off paying them time and a half than giving them the time off. Because we gave them 40 hours off, is that money that we can recoup, or that's money that we're not going to be able to recoup?
No, we'll recoup that money. I mean, I anticipate it. It's included in the total. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say that, the time that they've accrued as PTO to be used over the next 18 months is kind of a non-cash issue for us. There's no additional cash. We're just giving them more time off. There's value there, obviously, but if we decide we want to pay a portion of that now, that's still fine. We still can do that with those people. I think we just amend our whatever we voted on in the past and today, and just say, okay, 2 weeks in cash and 3 weeks is additional vacation PTO. The reason we might want to do that is if the total calculation, once this is cleaned up and we get closer to knowing the actual numbers, say 6 weeks from now, and we come up with, say, 700,000 of covered expenses that we can get forgiveness on, and our loan is 750. If we pay a portion or all of that, PTO vacation time, if we pay that now in cash, it's basically going to get reimbursed by the government. If that number was 50,000, got us to the 750 from the original calculation, it's kind of like a no-brainer that we should pay some of that out.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, paying some of it out, and talking to Ben on this. Now, he works the same number of people all year round, so giving his people another month off, he doesn't know. I mean, you probably talked to him. He can't give his crew a month off. He can give them the extra time off. Plus, he said they would rather have the money. If we can work something out where they get the money, plus we get to apply it to the loan, I mean, I think that's a win-win-win for them and a win for us. So I don't know exactly how we give them an either or. They can either take the money or half of it in cash.
I think we need to have more information and make the decision, but you nailed the decision, how we're going to make it. You're absolutely right, Jim.
So should we make this decision today, or should we wait and get the information so we can do it all at once?
I would suggest we wait, and I don't think there's an urgency to make that decision today, Mike.
No, there is.
I said on Tuesday when the accountant was on the line is once we know with some degree of certainty what the calculation gets us to as far as the forgiveness of the 750 loan, then with that data and whatever else we accumulate in the next month or two, then we can make the decision as to how much we want to pay out in cash versus leave as accrued PTO.
And it actually has to go out as cash. I mean, we used to buy compensatory time back from the employees at year end, and whatever you cashed out. And believe me, at 50% or greater, they're always going to take cash. I mean, that's because they live paycheck to paycheck, and that's more beneficial to them than the time off in that situation.
But
So
they all have vacation too. We don't cash out vacation. That's never. If they have to use it or lose it, it never rolls over.
sure.
We can't take it in cash. But this is something different at paid time off. We have the opportunity to give it to them in hours on their paycheck. It wouldn't go to time and a half or anything, but it just goes, it's not overtime, it's just straight hours. And we can pay it out and get it off our books.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Maybe we're better off to pay some of this out and not keep it on our books because if it's on our books, well, I know
On the second period, yeah.
it's a deficit. They count it as a deficit because even though they're going to take it off, sometimes you got to replace the person. So an auditor is going to make you count it as a deficit.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
Keep in mind too, this is only for hourly staff, as the salaried staff has not received anything, any extra pay time off or anything. They've just been working. So this is just strictly hourly staff.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying yay. Yay.
Okay.
Well,
Yay. Okay. It's
I don't
unanimous.
understand the motion. I thought. we were-
wait.
hold on.
I had a question on the motion.
Oh, yeah. I was supposed to reread the motion. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Didn't Bob say we shouldn't vote on this motion? Are you going to withdraw the motion until we can get it correct?
No, no. What Mike needs approval on today, I think, is the
1 week.
additional 1 week for people that are at home.
We just got segued into the other
Well, how are
portion.
we going to pay it out? We're going to give them a week, but don't we have to say how we're going to pay it out now?
Well, the people that are home are going to get paid. It's going to get paid in cash in lieu of they're getting their normal paycheck for 40 hours or 20 hours, whatever that week was for them, part-time, full-time. They get their paycheck as they would as if they were working, but they're at home, and that's the PTO for the people that are home.
So we're only voting on the people that are home. We're not voting on the people who worked.
No, you're voting on the people. The people who worked are just getting that. They get that PTO accrued to their accounts.
Right.
It's not going out in cash. Now we can choose to let them pay it out in cash. We could put it into their next paycheck.
Yeah.
But this paycheck is just getting accrued to their account.
It's just recognizing that we want to do the same thing we did a few weeks ago, for an extra week now. We did it for 4 weeks, I think, Mike. Now we're making it 5. But to your point, Jim, we need to relook at this in a few weeks as to the people that it's being accrued to be taken as vacation time and see if we want to pay some or all of it in cash now for the reasons we already talked about. So I didn't want to get into that motion yet. I want to wait a few weeks to make that decision. I don't know why we can't, just amend our motion in a couple of weeks to pay some in cash.
Long as you think that's going to go through an auditor, that we had a motion that they had to take it and they're going to take the time off, and then we changed it. Now they get paid for it. As long as that still goes on the thing, that's fine. I just think an auditor is going to look at that and say, well, you guys are just fudging your books. You guys just changed your mind after you already did that. That's my concern. is that we're making a decision now and then you're going to change it. Some auditor's going to say, I mean, they're not dummies. They're going to know what we're doing in the past tense. We're post-dating a decision. I have no problem with it, as long as you think that it's still going to be all right.
Yeah. 2 points. I have read several recommendations, general recommendations that auditors and attorneys put out to encourage firms to move things up into the 8-week period to make sure you get, that covered under the loan. I've seen that in several different things that have been written. And the other point I want to make is, often boards take a vote and then the next meeting they review the vote and they change it. So I don't see any reason we can't change it.
Auditors don't like that, but yeah, I have no problem if that's the way it's going. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to.
I think we're okay. I don't know what Mike thinks, but I think we're okay with.
Okay, I got no problem then.
Well, I can just say this. We're going to make some assumptions. We're going to let the board and the finance committee look at it. We're going to send it to the auditors and make sure they're good with it. So, this is not something we're just going to make in the office and then just send it over to FineMark. I mean, it's going to be very well reviewed. We all want to feel very comfortable with it.
Okay, I'm ready for the motion.
Okay.
Of course,
Vince?
Yeah, Mike, please explain to me again the purpose, just so I clear my mind on everything. What is it that you're asking us again to do for this motion?
Okay, so what I'm asking you to do is to fund paid time off for 1 week for the hourly staff, 40 hours if you're full-time, 20 hours if you're part-time. It's for the 1 week prior to when we began May 1st, cart golf, when golf operations reopen. So therefore, people in golf operations, when they get their paycheck for that time, for the last 2 weeks, they would only be able to have worked 1 week. Okay, they clocked in and worked 1 week. This is to cover that other week that they were at home. Then the other people who were working, they had to work. It's not fair to pay people to sit at home.
Right,
So we give them
stop.
PTO.
I'm confused. Are we paying, you said we're paying somebody to stay at home?
Yeah, all the golf operations staff hasn't worked in over a month.
I understand that we said we were going to pay certain people, right? We were going to pay them for a period of time, okay, as a gratis thing, so that they wouldn't go other jobs. They wouldn't have to take a layoff. They would have income, okay? So, and are we saying you just want to extend that period of time?
Extending it 1 week.
Okay, so you're extending it 1 week so that people that it would have ended, you're saying make it another week. They were at home, but now let's pay them where we weren't going to pay them based on our previous motion.
No, we were going to pay them.
I think we were going to.
We always were going to pay them for the time we're making them stay home. We're telling them you can't come to work because of the state of emergency and everything around the virus. You can't come to work. But we agreed, a month ago that we would pay them during that time.
And so therefore, I understood that one, that we agreed that we would pay them.
Yeah.
So what's changed now that we have to extend something? I don't understand that.
The original vote we took was only for a 4-week period, so we're adding a week to it that they were off.
That was my question. My question was, we had a limit, and now we've exceeded that limit, but you want to include that now for them for that week. In other words, because of our previous vote, they would not get a paid PTO.
Right.
And now they're going to get it based on this motion.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So everybody understand the motion?
What is it? Do you want to repeat the motion?
You made it, Mike.
I just said so
Somebody wrote it
moved.
down.
The motion is to the original 4-week period of paid time off would be extended by 1 week to make it 5 weeks,
Period.
period,
For hourly employees.
for the hourly employees.
Yeah.
Because they're
Hourly
getting paid for
employees.
1 week.
I understand. We're just saying the motion is to extend it by 1 week for hourly employees.
Correct.
That's my motion. Sounds good.
Second.
Second.
I seconded already.
Yeah. Now, all in favor, signify by raising your hand saying yay.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay.
All right. Glad we got that point clarified. Oh, I think that that takes care of everything on the agenda.
Yes.
And we're going to plan on meeting again next week at 2 o'clock. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Judy, you'll be back
Yep.
up north then, right?
Yes, yeah, we're going home Saturday.
Have a safe trip. By the way, Mike, congratulations, Jack, on his scholarship.
Hey,
Thank you
Jim,
very much.
can you say
Yes,
it again?
Jim.
Next week, Thursday, correct?
Yes.
Thursday
Okay.
at 2 o'clock.
I thought you said Tuesday, so, okay.
No. Thursday.
And then,
On
Tuesday, Mike will let us know if for sure we're gonna have it or if we're not gonna have it, correct?
Yes.
yes.
I'm good.
Anything else for the good of spring run, anybody? Okay, have a good week. Do I look older than 75? Thanks, everybody, for the
No.
birthday wishes.
You
Yeah,
do now.
thanks. Let's call this meeting adjourned. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Have a good week, everybody.
Stay well, stay well.
Bye.
They will, that's right.